Welcome to Healthcare du Jour, where we dish up and digest the latest in healthcare. For the next 30 minutes, sit back as we bring you insight, commentary, and discussion on trending topics to the table, all expertly served up by our host and his guests. Now here's your host, Matt Fisher.
Welcome back, and thank you for joining as we dive into the hottest topics in healthcare. I'm your host, Matt Fisher. On the menu today is Marge Ciancetta, a product manager at Cotiviti. Marge, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm very excited to be here.
So, Marge, what I always like to do before getting into the main part of the conversation is to give my guests a chance to provide more of an introduction in terms of who they are and what they do. So, Marge, the floor is yours.
All right. Thank you very much. So again, my name is Marge Ciancetta. I've been a product manager at Cotiviti for a little over a year and a half now. I stumbled into healthcare. The regional healthcare providers around here are some of the largest employers, so it's only natural that at some point I would end up working for one of them. So I had the great fortune of joining the quality improvement department, where I had exposure to a lot of different roles. I got to do reporting, quality measure building, medical record review, submissions, right? It was great to see all of the different ways that data got used, the collection and the dissemination of that data to really provide insights to people on what they were looking for, how to close measure gaps, how to provide better care. It was just a really well-rounded and very insightful view into how that data was being used. And so that really became a passion of mine. Since then, I've had the opportunity to work for a few different healthcare technology companies, and I really like that bridge between technology and its users. In my latest role, I oversee Cotiviti's Star Intelligence solution, which monitors and provides insights in the Medicare Advantage Star Ratings program. So again, I love understanding what information is valuable to people and presenting it in a meaningful way.
Yeah, no, that sounds like a really interesting kind of career progression. As you said, being able to stumble into healthcare, which, personally, I always think is one of the better ways to do it, because it allows you to find your passion as opposed to, having maybe a preset idea of what it might look like. And then, ideally hoping it matches that, but maybe then being having to go through a little bit more of a twist and turning path just because you weren't sure what you were actually getting into.
Very well said. So
kind of the last thing you mentioned is, I think, an area of a lot of interest, and certainly one that I see in headlines. And before I kind of refer to it so vaguely, I should just say it's kind of the MA star ratings and star quality piece. As I said, it is a topic that I feel gets a lot of kind of general attention as well as industry attention. So as we maybe get into pulling it apart a little bit, could you provide a bit of a grounding in terms of what the star ratings actually are and what they do?
Absolutely. I find that the best way to explain star ratings is really with an analogy. So think of star ratings like grades and a grade point average that's assigned in school. So each student earns grades in individual classes, and then their overall GPA is assigned to represent the student's performance throughout the year. A higher GPA represents better overall performance. So star ratings are like the grading system for Medicare Advantage plans. Plans receive grades ranging from 1 to 5 in individual measures, with 1 being the worst, 5 being the best. Plans receive overall contract ratings as well, which is a reflection of their overall performance for the year, similar to that grade point average. So those grades are assigned annually by the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, also known as CMS. And grades are assigned to all Medicare Advantage and prescription drug plans. So those plans that are provided by private health insurers, not the government. Grades are based on information CMS gathers about member satisfaction, plans, and healthcare providers. And there's about 40 different measures, and those grades are made available to the public each year when members go to select their plans from the Medicare website.
So when we're thinking about those grades, and I really like that analogy because I think it kind of helps to ground it. Is there the similar type of maybe bell curve that you might have always heard about in school, where there's going to be the high performers, and then you're going to try and push to maybe some type of average, or is it you could have kind of different disproportionate groupings where maybe you are able to get more on a higher end because it's really doing that individualistic determination?
That's a really good question and a really important part about star ratings to call out. So yes, star ratings are graded on a curve if we're talking about those school grades again. So what CMS will do is collect everybody's scores for the year in each measure, and then that curve is set afterwards. There's no way to say, if I achieve a 90%, I'll be a 5-star. If I achieve 80 to 90%, I'll be a 4-star, right? Those grades, those cut points aren't set until after all of the data is collected for the year. So what's difficult for plans is that they don't necessarily know what grades they need to achieve to earn a particular star rating.
Yeah, although, as you said, even though they might not know particularly where they're going to fall, I suspect there is still that inherent desire to rate as highly as possible to increase the likelihood of being able to come out on the preferred end of that curve.
Indeed, yes. Actually, even plans are measured in their ability to improve year over year as well. So those improvement measures are very highly weighted in the star ratings plan, allowing plans to receive more credit for continuing to improve their scores year over year.
Yeah, and actually, that's probably a really good point to make. Where it's CMS is, as you said, looking for improvement. So so it kind of implies that you're trying to always improve that member experience, because you can't just rest on your laurels and think that just because you've been doing it really, performing really well in one area year over year, others are likely going to catch up and pass you if you remain static.
Absolutely, yes. It is the continually chasing the carrot is a good way to think about star ratings. You always have to continue improving.
Yeah, and kind of, as you just said, kind of continually chasing that carrot, which, maybe it gives that implication that there is a reward for doing it. So kind of why is it important to get a higher rating, and what are the benefits or that go along with that, other than maybe that advertising piece where people love to say, 4 or 5 star, top rating, but what are the actual practical implications of falling in a particular place on the scale?
Really good question again. So there's really 3 different areas where that can have an impact on a health plan: enrollment, revenue, and reputation. So from an enrollment perspective, if you have higher star ratings, you're going to attract more members to your plan. If there are higher rated plans available to you as a beneficiary, you're going to be more attracted to those plans. From a revenue perspective, higher star ratings can also lead to increased revenue for plans. So they get additional money in terms of rebates and quality bonus payments, which are extra money that the plans can use to provide additional benefits like hearing, dental, and vision, or reduce premiums and copays. So a lot of those extras are provided by the additional money that plans receive. And then finally, reputation. Let's be honest, good ratings are bragging rights. I live in an area that's highly competitive, and so every year I'll drive down the road and I see we earn 5 stars, right? Plans really want to promote that and gain that brand recognition by promoting their good scores. Plans should be bragging because it really is quite a big achievement to score well in this program.
So kind of given that importance of, as you just said, scoring well for those kind of 3 key reasons, what does it take to actually perform well and hopefully get that preferred high grade?
So as I mentioned earlier, there's about 40 different measures that make up star ratings, and together they give a really well-rounded view of all of the ways that beneficiaries interact with their health plans. Some measures are more important than others, so they're assigned higher weightings. Most measure weights are between 1 and 5, and an example of this would be controlling blood pressure is weighted at a 3 weight, whereas the preventative screening, breast cancer screening, is only a 1 weight. So all of the scores that plans receive in the individual measures are brought together at the end of the year in a weighted average to give that overall view, that GPA that the plan has earned.
Kind of given that the broad areas that are covered by the ratings, operationally, what does it look like, or what, kind of what concepts do plans put in place to hopefully drive the outcomes that are going to produce a better rating under each particular measure?
Can you give me a little bit more information can you expand your question, please?
Sure. So I guess maybe kind of picking up on one or two of those examples you gave around, the screenings or diabetes control, are there particular approaches that a plan might want to implement that would help produce a better rating for that particular measure? Or is it really so individualistic for each measure that it's kind of hard to paint with a broad brush of maybe some generalized approaches that can underpin getting good ratings?
Yeah, there's a couple different tactics that plans can use to make sure that they get good ratings across the board. One of them is provider education. So, coding changes every year, and providers need to know how they need to code particular services so that they get credit for closing their gaps, that members get credit for taking their actions. So provider education is always a big one. Member outreach is another thing that plans do often. So after COVID, for example, there were a lot of pushes by plans to make sure that folks were coming into the office to get their annual wellness visits, all of their preventative screenings done that they had maybe put off for the last few years. So that member outreach was really important in getting people back in the office.
Yeah, so kind of it seems like that kind of the common piece around those two is really communication and engagement. Because if you're not, as you said, keeping people up to date on year-over-year changes, or really just maintaining, a strong interconnected relationship, it's easy to miss a particular visit or preventative measure, which is then going to have a kind of a ripple effect across the plan.
Absolutely. I think some of the chronic conditions are a really good example of that as well. So think about a member with diabetes, right? They have their PCP, an endocrinologist, an ophthalmologist, a podiatrist, a pharmacist that are all involved in their care. So you need to make sure that everybody is coordinating their care to look at the member as a whole. If they're having problems adhering to their medication, you all have to work together to understand why that is. Are they getting side effects? Can they not afford their medication? There could be a million reasons why. So addressing those chronic conditions as a whole can really knock out several different measures at once, but it's also about providing good quality member care and looking at that individual as a person, not just, checking boxes.
Yeah, no, and I think that's a great point to make, because then you can kind of see the alignment with where a lot of the overall push in the industry is for value-based care and proactive preventative care. So it's, if the star ratings are encouraging that, then it's just another piece in that puzzle of hopefully shifting the industry as a whole to that in that direction, as opposed to just being reactive.
Indeed, yeah. And you can see that the star ratings plan methodology continues to evolve year after year to continually shift the focus to what CMS thinks is most important. So prior to COVID, there was a lot of weight given to measures around member experience. They wanted to make sure that members were feeling like they understood their benefits, received good care, that the plans were really taking care of them. And then COVID surfaced that there were a lot of health inequities. Coming out of that, CMS shifted the focus by changing measure weights, adding new measures to focus more on health equity. So really making sure that folks who are low income, have disabilities, things of that nature are being taken care of the way that they should as well.
Yeah, and that's a really good observation, where it's, kind of reflects where the overall goals are, and can encourage those different behavioral changes. And for those of you just joining, I'm talking with Marge Ciancetta from Cotiviti, and we're talking about the Medicare Advantage Star Ratings. And Marge, I want to pick up on one of those pieces you just mentioned, which is that CMS does make changes to the star ratings and tinkers with it. So how often do those changes occur, and how material can those changes end up being, and how quickly? And I know that's a lot to unpack there.
Sure. The star ratings methodology changes annually. There's new specifications that are delivered in October each year, but codified in the year earlier in the year. So there can be small changes and large changes. Some of the small changes are things like adding new measures, retiring measures where there's not a lot of differentiation between plans, or just changing the measure weights. So we had talked about reducing or increasing the member experience measures to shift the focus one way or the other. And then some of those large changes happen, there's probably one a year at least. And some of the bigger ones that CMS has unveiled lately would be the Universal Foundation, which ensured consistent measurement across all of the different government programs to reduce different flavors of measurement, really being able to focus on members rather than measurement. Another one would be the shift to digital measurement. CMS has indicated they're going to follow suit with NCQA to rely more heavily on digital measurement going forward. And as I mentioned earlier, COVID is another example of that. There was a very big emphasis on health equity coming out of COVID. So they introduced the Health Equity Index, which is a huge equalizer for plans.
Yeah, and kind of hearing all those changes that can occur, and based on the experience and also the importance, I would hazard a guess that it takes a lot of time and resources to drive success with the star ratings. So how do plans of different sizes interact with the rating systems? Does this favor the large plans that are maybe more national and the ones that maybe people have heard of more, or how can smaller, maybe more regional or local plans also succeed in the system?
Okay, good question. First, let me set a little bit of context around the marketplace. So there's about 60 million members who are eligible for Medicare, and just over half of them enrolled in Medicare Advantage in 2023. Medicare Advantage enrollment is highly concentrated. So there's about 7 insurers that account for 84% of the marketplace. And United Healthcare and Humana account for nearly 50% of the market just between the two of them. And the market is expected to continue to consolidate in the coming years. So it's more important than ever for smaller plans to really optimize their resources and figure out how that they can stand out amongst those bigger providers. In a nutshell, larger plans have deeper pockets and more resources. So small plans might face resource constraints, limited infrastructure, and a smaller pool of eligible beneficiaries, which can make it harder for them to achieve star ratings.
So kind of given those challenges, what can those small plans do to fight that uphill battle? Or and maybe this is kind of a different but parallel question: do they get evaluated differently because they have smaller pools than the big plans?
So the star ratings program is really a one size fits all, and that can be kind of tough for smaller plans. We just said larger plans tend to perform better than small plans. So small plans really need to lean into the things that they can do that larger plans can't. So some of those benefits that they offer might be offering unique benefits tailored to specific demographics, really focusing on members who are in D-SNP programs, or focusing on cardiovascular health or diabetes. You see some smaller plans that are kind of in niche markets. And then another area is providing personalized care. If you establish quality relationships with your members and provide them with exceptional service, they're likely to keep coming back to you. It's really hard to provide personalized care to 6 million members, but a lot more reasonable to do that for 1,000 members. And then finally, smaller plans have the opportunity to be more present in their local or regional environment. A national health plan might not pick up on all of the nuances that are different between a Pennsylvania and an Arizona plan, but a regional plan or a local plan will have a much better idea of who their beneficiaries are and be able to personalize the plan and the care accordingly for those members.
Yeah, it's kind of, those are really great points. And it's almost kind of like that shop local argument that you hear for, general consumer business, which is if you walk into a store where all they have is that one location or, just they're only in your area, it's more likely that they're going to know what your personal needs might be or have the time to actually learn what those are and then create, as you were saying, that more personalized experience as opposed to just having broad parameters and trying to shoehorn people into one group or another.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah, there's something to be said for a local plan who understands you, understands your community, and can really refer you to the resources or, have different partnerships that a larger plan wouldn't be able to provide.
So kind of thinking about it from that perspective, I know earlier you said that there's been a lot of consolidation within the MA marketplace, and there's a feeling that that's going to keep continuing. Do you see the star ratings as a way for small plans that are able to kind of follow some of those paths you were describing of that personalization and being targeted and focused? Like, do you see that as a way for them to be able to succeed, or is that almost kind of just greasing the wheels for a more favorable acquisition?
That's a good question. In some ways, I feel like we have a self-fulfilling prophecy on our hands. So larger firms have more resources, they're able to perform better on these measures. So then they get more rebates and more quality bonus payments from the Star Ratings program. So then they have more money to be able to reinvest in those additional benefits or reducing copays that only make the larger plans more attractive to members when they're shopping. And then that cycle continues. Those larger plans continue to get more market power and market share, and they continue to get that lion's share of the marketplace. So it's really hard to be a smaller plan right now. The stakes are higher for them because they often just have fewer resources and less room for error. An example of that I like to give is with the osteoporosis management. If there is a woman who had a fracture, she has to have a follow-up within 6 months to make sure that she's getting an osteoporosis screening. And there's often very few members that are in that measure. So if a small plan misses even one member from getting their osteoporosis screening, it can affect their star ratings. So there's just no room for error for small plans. But like I said earlier, smaller plans can really excel by focusing on targeted quality initiatives and leveraging that agility and flexibility that they have.
Yeah, and as you said, there is a lot of opportunity there. And then, which kind of leads into a question where, I guess this is more of a what's your personal opinion on it? But how do you feel about star ratings overall? Do you think they are achieving their purpose, or are they missing the mark to some degree by kind of entrenching some of these disparities and not accounting for the different experiences and circumstances that every plan is pursuing?
That can certainly be a tough question to answer. I think it's difficult for all plans to be rated the same way. A one-size-fits-all approach doesn't necessarily apply, but it's probably the best that we can do right now, right? We're giving that consistent measurement, that apples to apples comparison, so that beneficiaries can make educated decisions about which plan is best for them. So, there are definitely constraints that smaller plans have, serving rural and underserved populations or other distinct needs that can make it harder for them to provide that quality. But they can personalize their care, have more community engagement, and those things don't necessarily get captured, but they increase your brand stickiness, your brand recognition, and keep members coming back to you. So a one-size-fits-all isn't the best approach, but I think it's probably the best one that we have.
Yeah, and kind of as you said, the benefit even of the recognized difficulties with the one-size-fits-all approach is that the ratings have been evolving over time and they're not remaining static. So it's, kind of helping to focus, especially I think you're pointing out more recently on health equity issues that maybe can help favor those smaller plans that might have greater insight into particular needs of their community. So, maybe inherently, as the focus shifts a little bit, it can be in a manner that is able to benefit everyone who's participating in the program.
Very well said. Yes, the whether you're a small plan or a large plan, you are constantly dealing with an evolving program that has different measures, different weights, different focuses year over year. So even if you're a big plan, you certainly cannot be resting on your laurels. You're really trying to continuously improve. The whole purpose of the Star Ratings program is to provide meaningful differentiation between all of those different plans, find meaningful ways to say this plan is performing better than that plan on a given measure or set of measures. So, of course, it's going to continue to evolve. Of course, it's going to have different ways to differentiate between the plans. And it is hard to stand out, but something that plans of all sizes need to continue to strive.
Yeah, so kind of thinking about all those points, and unfortunately, already having to wrap up because, believe it or not, we're already almost out of time. The final question I want to ask is: so, if you had a magic wand and you could make any change to the star rating program, what would you do?
I love this question, and I probably have spent far too much time thinking about this over the past several months. So, if I could change one thing about the star ratings program, it would be to eliminate that curve that we talked about earlier. I wish that we had finite measurement and performance goals that plans could work towards. It can be really frustrating for plans to not know what they need to achieve in order to get to a particular star rating. So, from a vendor standpoint, what we are often doing is spending time tracking the market, figuring out where those cut points might be set, guessing where performance needs to land for the year in order to have plans achieve a particular measurement. So we're always chasing that future rather than focusing on the present. And I think having those finite goals, those finite cut points set ahead of time would really allow plans to make a more solid plan, have a plan to work towards, then they could allocate the resources in a much more effective way.
Yeah, no, I think those are excellent points and really good ones to keep in mind, even with the system as it is set up. But Marge, as I said, believe it or not, we are already out of time. So I want to thank my guest, Marge Ciancetta, for a great conversation today.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate being here. It was great speaking with you.
Yeah, and thank you to everyone listening. Keep the dialogue going and connect with me at #HCDEJURE. I'm Matt Fisher. Until next time.